Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're learning Masechtas Nazir, daf Nun Ches. We are going to begin on the bottom of Nun Zayin Bebeis, the third line from the bottom. Lema Hakafas Kol Harosh Tanahi. So if a person shaves off his entirety of his hair, the question is that going to be Shema HaKafa? Is that considered to be a violation of Lo Sakifu, of the shaving of one's payas, or not? So perhaps it's actually based on a Malchokas Tanaim, the Tanabanan. The Pasuk says Rosho. So Ma Tabal. So why does it have to say the word Rosho? Because the Pasuk in its entirety says, it says on the seventh day you shave all of your hair off. And then the Pasuk for some reason then specifies this. Rosho, you shave off your hair, your beard, the gabos einav, your eyebrow, kol sa'aro, yigalech, everything. The chibes says begadav, you wash your clothing, v'rachat says besar b'mayim v'tahir. And after the giluach, then you go into the mikvah, and then you're tahar. And again, this is on the seventh day. Now the question is, why does the pasuk say this? L'chayra, it already tells us Pashit, you're supposed to shave off your hair. It says you shave es kol sa'aro. So then why does it have to say your hair on your head? Obviously, there's hair on my head. So what is that coming to teach you? So we know that even though here there's a mitzvah to shave your hair, elsewhere you're not allowed to cut the payas off the corners off your hair. So the question is, because that is true, as we continue Nun Ches Amud Aleph, Yochel af Mitzarkein. Maybe also this applies to a Mitzayra. Says the Mefarsh, Lo Yakif, that you're not allowed to cut off the payas of your hair. Well, because there's a los aseh. So even though there's an aseh, and aseh is doichel los aseh, but maybe not. Maybe we should say in this situation we have a problem, because the fact is the pasuk says lo sakifu. So therefore, when we're dealing with this person who is a Mitzayra, and a Mitzayra has to shave his hair, his head, his beard, everything, so maybe not the payas. Talmud Leimer Rosho. That's why the pasuk says Rosho, to let you know. Even though normally you're not allowed to cut off the payas, however, a Mitzayra is obligated to do so. But Tanya Idach, elsewhere we learned Rosho. Ma Talmud Leimer. So why does it say Rosho in the second same Lefi Shenemar Gabi Nazir? Because when it comes to a nazir, the pasuk says ta'ar lo yavar al roisho, that a razor he shall not pass over his hair. Says the entire pasuk, kol yimei neder nizro tar lo yavar al bas al roishay. You're not allowed to cut your hair with a razor. Ad mulois hayomim asher yazil Hashem kodeshei gadol parasar roishay. You're not allowed to cut any of your hair while you are still a nazir. So because the pasuk says that yochel af nazir mitzarkein, you would think maybe if you're a Nazir and you're a Mitzayra and you finish the times of Nazirus, then you're not allowed to cut off your hair, because if you're a Nazir, you're not allowed to cut off your hair. You're a Nazir Mitzayra, but the reality is a Mitzayra, part of the process of removing the being a Mitzayra is shaving off your hair. That's why Talmud Leimer Rosho. So the pasuk says Rosho in the second brisa is to tell you that if you're a Nazir Mitzayra, the din is that even though normally a Nazir can't cut off his hair, but since you're a Mitzayra, you cut off the hair. Now, my love, Tanahi. Well, this whole point over here is actually a Machokas Tanaim. Why? Lamandi, I remember Nazir, the one who learns out from a Nazir, Ksavar Hakafas Kol Rosh Loshma Hakafa. He actually holds that shaving off all of your hair is not an issue. V'chi Asakra, so the pasuk is only coming Lamidche Es Los Aseh V'aseh. It's coming to push off a los aseh and aseh, namely regarding that of a Nazir Mitzayra. So look in the Mefarsh. Dolmandi Armed Hai Rosho Dechsib Mitzayra. One who uses Rosho from Mitzayra, Lo Asya El Minche Lo Sase de Nazir. He's only coming to say that it pushes off the los aseh of being a Nazir, the Lo Yavar Ta'ar El Rosho. The whole prohibition is because you're a Nazir, not to shave off your hair. Ksaver Mishum Lavd hakafel tzarich, which is mashma the whole general prohibition of lo takifu is not really an issue. The ilmitzarich of it hakafes kol harosh, Disharid hakafas kol harosh lav shma hakafa. So that must be, why is he mentioning this case? It's because when it comes to a Mitzvah shaving off his hair, it's not a violation of lo sakifu. Why does he have to mention the case of a Nazir? Just mention that you're not allowed to cut off your payas, like the first case. So why does he mention Nazir Mitzvah? That the whole issue of a Mitzvah is just stam, you're not allowed to cut off your payas. So it must be because the first brisa holds a kafas haroish, kafas kol roish is shema hakafa. However, this other second opinion is lo shema hakafa. That's why you have to bring on the case. Oh, but you can't do it because he's a nazir. The idoch, the first brisa is savar hakafas kol roish shema hakafa. The chiyas akra. So when the pasuk rosha comes, lamidchi ulav greda. Only a situation where you're mitzayra, that even though you're a mitzayra, you're allowed to cut off your payas. So why? Why is it mentioning that? It must be because there's generally a problem of cutting off your payas because a kafas kol rosh shema hakafa. So maybe this is the machlokas tanoim. Amaravno, the koliyam hakafas kol rosh shema hakafa. The truth is, if you shave your hair off completely, it's not an issue, and therefore that really sounds to me in more support of the second brisa. So therefore, if you shave off all your hair, you haven't violated anything. So v'chi asakra. So what is the pasuk coming to tell you? Hikif. It's talking about a situation where you did cut off all your hair, which in itself may not be problematic. And then afterwards, only afterwards, you shaved off all of your hair. In other words, what happened is shehekif, not that you cut off all of your hair, but you cut off the payas, right? And then you shaved off everything else. Since if you shave off everything all at once, you're not going to be chayav because a kafas kol rosh lo shema hakafa. So ki hakev lo v'sayv gilach nam lo mechayev. The fact that you did it in stages shouldn't matter. The fact that you cut off your payas and then a few minutes later you shave everything else off, that should also not be an issue. In other words, if you hold a kafas kol rosh is lo shema hakafa, so it should not make any difference if you shave off all your hair all in one shot or you do it in intervals. And therefore, the fact that you shaved off your payas may not be an issue of baltashchis, of baltakifu, in the event when it comes to a mitzvah of shaving your hair off completely. Umi kosev kra hachi. But does the pasuk really say this? We saw this before, that whenever you have, even though it's true, there is a concept of aseh doichalos aseh. That's only when you have no other option. However, if you have an aseh doichalos aseh, miyato yochel kaim shnei mutav. If you could do both of them, that's the better way of doing it. Otherwise, let the aseh come and push off the los aseh. So look in the Mefarish. Kloimer. If you would shave off your hair completely in one shot, because shaving your hair off completely is not an issue of lo sakifu. So mikok kisvi rachmana lekra. Does the pasuk come to include the ovid derech iser? If let's say your mom just shaved off your payas, to make it v'hadim galech lo machayev? Why v'hadif v'hashaper adif delegalech kule? It would be better that you shave it off completely. If you hold a kafas kol rosh lo shema kafa, so then that's the better way of doing it than shaving off your whole hair at one shot than to do it in intervals. So how do we know? Why would we say that that would be acceptable? Now, the kulim kafas kol rosh shema kafa. Really, shaving off your hair completely is an issue, and therefore that really is more in support of the first brisa. That the chiddush is that even though that's true, by mitzayro, since it says rosho, we allow you to shave off your hair. So the second brisa that says come to push off a los aseh and an aseh, which is talking about the case of a nazir mitzayra, because by a nazir, it says tar lo yavar al rosho, lav greda minole. How do we know the violation of a lav by itself? So yolav megedilim. We learned it out from the din of Gedilim. The Omer Kra. Silba shatnes. A person is a los aseh, you're not allowed to wear shatnes. But Tanya lo silba shatnes. Ha Gedilim taslach mehem. However, Gedilim you can make, so which is referring to tzitzis. Says the Mefarish, Amr the lav kol shekain hu. So ma say veloisa say dachel losa say lo kol shekain. So if it's doichan aseh and a losa say, so losa say for sure. So again, it's coming to tell you, we learn out from this din of tzitzis, that even though there's an issue of shatnez, however, for tzitzis, you can have wool and linen together. So that's how he learns out the din of asay doichel lois asay. So the first brisa, who learns out the whole notion from Rosho, that the asay of shaving off your hair as a mitzvah is doichel lois asay of lois akifu. So my time lo nafikli megdilim. Why doesn't he learn asay doichel lois asay from the case of the shatnez? Sarmalach likidarava hud asa, because he actually holds the whole drasha is for something else, not to tell you asay is doichel asay, but a different mitzvah, a different halach when it comes to tzitzis. The Rabbi Rami, he has the contradiction psukim. Ksiv, on one hand, the pasuk says v'nosnu al tzitzit hakanaf. So the pasuk on one hand, which we're obviously quite familiar because it's part of Kriya Shema, the third paragraph, it says that you will put the tzitzis hakanaf by the corner. So min kanaf, which sounds like it has to be that the strings come from the same material as the beged itself. That's what it says. V'nosnu al tzitzis hakanaf. So it's min kanaf. Psil techeles. So it has to be the same material. V'ksiv tzemer pishtim yachtav. And yet elsewhere it says lo silba shatnes tzemer pishtim yachtav. There's a prohibition of wearing wool and linen together. Haketzad. So how is that shaykh? So he says like this: Semer pishtin, if you have tzitzis, in which is made out of semer pishtin, paitrin ben b'mina ben shel b'mina. The din is, even if the beged is not the same as the actual tzitzis themselves, then it's still okay. It'll pater that you fulfill the mitzvah because it's semer pishtin. So therefore, if you have semer and pishtin, it's not necessary to have the other part of the bag of the tzitzis. And you have the tzitzis and you have the beged, the actual garment. So even if the tzemer, even if one is wool and linen and the other one is a totally different material, it's still good tzitzis. Shar minim, however, if it's from a different min, if it comes from not wool or linen, then b'min and paitrin, it must be the same material as the garment. The tzitzis and this material have to be the same. Shlo b'minam in paitrin. So that's the chiddush. When it comes to semer pishtin yachtav, it's dafka when it comes to semer pishtin that we have this leniency that the beged and the tzitzis can be different material. However, if you find a material, something which is not semer pishtin, then it must be that the beged and the tzitzis must be from the same material. The high Tana, and this first Tana, which brings the notion of the Mitzayra, the Mapik L'Roishul Lav Greda is just come to tell you, oh, there's an issue of Losakifu, you're not to cut off your payas. Oh, but we learn out from Rosho to teach you that if you're a Mitzayra, you're allowed to shave off, you're supposed to shave off your hair. So the Asi Aseh V'Dachi Eslos Aseh V'Aseh Menolan. Now we know an Aseh is Doicha Los Aseh, but how does he know that Aseh is Doicha which, by the way, we paskin that that's not the case, but at least in this, what we're saying here, when it comes to a Nazir Mitzayra, it's a case of asay and a losasay. Because when it comes to a Nazir, it's a losasay, lo yavra rosho. By a Mitzayra, there's an asay to shave your hair. So you have an asay and a losasay. So nafgale mizikanoi. So according to this shita, not only is an asay doichelos asay, but we're going out from zikanai, which is also extra, because desanya zikanu matamud loimer. It doesn't need to say that either, because it already says you shave off, the Matzar shaves off all of his hair. Obviously, it includes a beard. So matamud loimer, fishin emer, pasikanu ligalechu, yochel af koyin mitzayra came. The chiddush is that even you would think a koyin mitzayra. Now, a koyin has an additional stringency. So you would think not only a Mitzayra cannot, typically is not able to, the person is typically not able to shave his payas, but a Mitzayra is allowed, but what if it's a Koyin Mitzayra? So Talmud Lam is a Kanoi. So the Pasuk Zakano comes to even include such a person. It says the Mefarsh, the Ka'asi Aseh de Mitzayra, the Mitzvah Aseh of a Mitzayra, of shaving, the galach es kol sa'aro es roisha v'esakanai, shaving off his hair, his beard, v'kodachi asay v'losasay, the kayin losasay, upasekanim ligalechu, Asay kedoshim yul elokechem. So when it comes to a kohen, there's also a mitzvah asay of kedoshim yihu. So by kohen mitzvah is another case of an asay is doichelos asay v'asay. So you actually have two cases of an asay doichelos asay v'asay. One is the Nazir mitzvah, and the other one is a kohen mitzvah. So uman demapik leilu rosho asay v'lois asay. The second brisa that warns out rosho to tell you asay and los asay. So leif mizakanai. Why does he have to say that the drasha of Nazir mitzvah? It went out from Rosh. Why does it learn out from Zikano, just like this drasha, and learn out from a Kohen Mitzvah? That I say is Daichalos Seviyaseh. What Tamech the Kaimel One Ba'alma? We learned elsewhere as we continue the Chesed Beis. Delo Aseh Aseh B'Dachas Los Seviyaseh, which is what I said before. That generally speaking, we do not hold this din. So Leil Mekayin the Dinchi. The Dachi. Why don't we say that no? Maybe we actually shouldn't. That maybe that's not the case. Maybe an asay should be daichelos asay in all cases, not just here. Notice we're making an exception. That's good for the point that you have these psukim that allow asay to be doicha lois asay, even though normally it's not, because asay is usually not doicha los asay. But you have a pasuk, you go to Roisha, you a kanai, to teach you when it comes to a kohen mitzvah or a nazir mitzvah that the din is that an asay is doicha even los asay. So for the Gemara, we should learn out from here that from all cases, l'chol Torah kul, we should say that asay is doicha los asay. El mekayin loyalfinan, you can't, because you can't learn out from a kohen to kol Torah kul, because malakoyin shechen lav she'enu sheva b'koil. Because this is not something in which is for all people. This is a specific din when it comes to a kohen. So maybe when it comes to a kohen, the dinim are different. So Nazir mekayin nami uyol. So Nazir from kohen you also can't learn. Shekain lav she'enu sheva b'koil. Okay. Uman demoikim l'hai rosho ben Nazir. The one who learns out Roshim and Nazir, Lomu is a kanai. So what does he need the pasuk of zakana for? So meboil in the sign is zakana fish nemer pasuk when you go leichu that says you're not supposed to cut off your beard. So yachal av kohen mitzar came. Maybe a kohen mitzar is also not to cut off his beard. Tamalom is a kanai. So the pasuk is telling you that a kohen mitzar is allowed. Umenoa and the batar. How do we know that a mitzar is supposed to use a razor? So the sanyu pasuk we go leichu that when it comes to you're not allowed to shave out your beard. So yochalaf gilchu b'misparayim yechayiv. You think even there would be a general chiyuv of cutting off your beard with scissors. Talmud lemer lo sashchis. This is lo sashchis. It has to be a form of destruction, which a shaver scissors do not cause hashchasa. Doesn't destroy. Lo sashchis yachal lo milchad berahitni. Chayiv, you would think if you use pincer and removers and things of that nature, you would also be chayiv because that will it'll be oiker the hairs from its ikr. So which you had numerous times, that you need to have this duality. Only a razor has both elements of shaving, hashchasa and destruction. So therefore, when it comes to a beard, the whole isser of shaving the beard is dafka a destruction which is giluach. And therefore, that's how we know it has to be batar. The isser is with a razor, and therefore the isser is with a razor, which means that when it comes to actually shaving, the mitzvah requires the use of a razor. Okay. So the one who learns out the first brisa, that's just come tell you lav itself, that the lav of loisakifu is removed because of a mitzvah, because it says roishai, so lamuli michtav rosha v'lamuli michtav zakanai. Mashma lamidchi lav greda, mashma lamidchi losa seviaseh. So one pasuk is to be doicha just a lav. Asay is doicha los asay. The other one's the doicha asay is doicha los asay. Hilkach shakuhu v'yamushtehen. So l'char they're equal, and you should be able to bring both of them. Why not learn kayin from Nazir mitzvah? So that's the whole point. So the Gemara says kayin and Nazir l'yof. You can't learn out kayin and Nazir because we said shechin yishim b'she'ela, because a person can always remove his nazirus if he goes to a heter chacham. Nazir mekayin lo yov shechein lav shein shabbakoil. Can't learn from a kayin because that's something which is unique to him. And generally can't learn from them because you can ask that which we said before. So, again, why not learn Kayin from Nazir Mitzvah? There's a Kanai. So it teaches that the Mitzvah's hair cutting is only with a razor. Since the Isser is only with a razor, so the Pasuk, which is being matir, must also be with a razor. We're actually going to stop here. Let's look at question question 4, which is also question TA3 and TB4. As we said, so either we went out from Giluach to Mitzayra Nazir. If you have a person who is a Mitzayra who also is a Nazir, so there's an Isser of the Isbe Tarlo Yavar. There's an Isser of Tarlo Yavar, and also the Kodesh Yeh. So that's the Aseh and the Los Aseh. V'shani Nazir shechenish m'she'ela. You can't learn out from Nazir because it can be removed through Heter Chacham. Giluach the Mitzayra Kayin on the Isbe Lav the Hashchasa. It's an Isser of Hashchasa, and also Kedoshim Yu by a Kayin. But you can't learn Kayin till Chol Torah Kula Shechein Lav Sheinu Shava Bakoil Adkan.